It's almost ready. All right. I just want to welcome everybody to our presentation this morning on RON, Remote Online Notarization. Skyanne Dinnigan is the presenter today, and she is an unbelievable escrow admin here at Pioneer Title. We have a pretty cool collection of people from across the state here. We've got many different sales reps from across Arizona, escrow officers from all over, whether it's Bullhead City and Kingman. We have the Tucson area on all over Phoenix, White Mountains. I think we are getting close to Flagstaff too. So welcome everybody. I'm Carrie Sparks with Pioneer Title, and on behalf of all the reps that have invited you today, thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions following the presentation, please get a hold of the rep that invited you. We're all working together to make sure the transactions are seamless as we possibly can during this unique time in our history. But again, welcome so much. We want to be here to help you build your business. And many of us are involved in a program called Snapback Business Planning. It's something that many of us are coached by a business coach by the name of Daryl Turner. And he's been motivating us and inspiring us. And we likewise outward to our realtors and lender partners want to be there for you as we kind of go back to, I hate the term new normal, but in the words of Tom Ferry, I'll use the term pivot. We're pivoting right now. And so please, please, please reach out to your business development, account manager, whatever their title is, for support and assistance. And I'll turn it over to Skyanne. But before I do, I want to remind you that if you've taken this class in the past, there are updates today that didn't exist a couple weeks ago when we did it. And I would venture to believe that staying well versed on this topic is going to be something for the future because it seems to be evolving quickly. So Skyanne, take it over.
All right, thank you, Carrie. So I've done this class a lot. I've done it for probably close to a year, but over the past 2 months, I've done it, at least once a week, sometimes a couple of times a week. And every time I do it, there's a new change, in the past couple of months, because as most of you probably know, with the governor's executive order, he moved up the effective date for RON use in the state of Arizona, or RON notaries being able to be certified. So with that, this is an open forum. I'd like for you guys to ask questions. We will kind of pause at the bottom of each page. I'll have Carrie check the chat box. And if you have a question, you don't want to, say it verbally, unmute yourself and say it, please put it in the chat box, because if you're thinking it, someone else is probably thinking it as well. So let's just have it be classroom style, right? Like, raise your hand, ask your question, and then we'll move on. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen with all of you so that you can see the presentation. So see how our technology is going to work for us today, friends. All right, Carrie, do we look good?
We look good.
Perfect. Okay, so you're all joining today to learn about remote online notarization, which we affectionately call RON. So what does everyone know and what does everyone want to know? Well, a few months ago, everyone didn't know much. In fact, most people didn't even know what RON was. And so this class was really educational. I think now people know what it is. So it's more just learning the ins and outs of it. So RON is remote online notarization. It is notarization using audio visual technology over the internet. So it's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're FaceTiming, right, through Zoom. But then you add in a DocuSign type of scenario into this meeting, and then that's basically what RON is. So in order to do it, you've got to have this audio-visual technology over the internet. In the past, there's been several different versions of not RON, but just some sort of like electronic signing or notarization. There's something that's called IPEN, which is an in-person notarization, which oddly enough, you meet in person with the notary, but what you're signing and having notarized is e-notarized. And then there's a hybrid, which has probably been something that we've seen, I would say at least for the past 12 years, where you get a set of loan documents and anything that requires notarization is printed out and signed and notarized, wet signed. And anything that doesn't require notarization is all e-signed. And then another section of e-signing for a loan package would be an e-note. So that's the electronic execution and storage of a promissory note. And that's the step in a loan package that is at this point preventing some of our lenders from being able to have a loan package executed using RON. And I say some because some lenders they've got it down, right? They've got the technology and they're ready to run. Is anyone using RON in the state of Arizona? I mean, that's a quick yes. That's a quick yes from me. We have had somebody on our team that has been really excited about this program and this technology, and they've kind of led the charge in the state of Arizona. And so we've been really fortunate to be ahead of the curve. And so when the pandemic came out, we had already been using RON in some way, shape, or form for probably the past year and a half, just kind of if and when it made sense in a transaction. And so because of that, we were ready to help people using this technology when they were, self-quarantining or something of that nature. Are lenders and their investors allowing loan docs to be signed using RON? And that's the million-dollar question. So what I will say is the list of investors who are purchasing the e-closed loans is growing exponentially. So it's not just an easy yes, but it is evolving. So I think that the yeses are starting to come more than they were. Seller side documents. Are lenders going to allow a RON executed deed? And I will tell you that maybe 99.5% of the time, our answers today are yes. And so it's a simple question to the decision maker at the lender's office. We understand if maybe you won't allow the buyer's loan documents to be executed using RON, but can we have the seller side documents, that warranty deed, be signed using RON? And more often than not, that answer is a quick yes. So the status of RON today, and right, it depends on the day because it is ever evolving. It changes. Literally, there were announcements on Friday, there were announcements on Monday, and so I'm constantly updating my little presentation for these classes. So one of the changes that we saw just this week was with respect to one of the underwriters that we use here at Pioneer Title. So we've got underwriter flexibility and we're able to underwrite using 5 different title underwriters. And so now we can tell you that all 5 of our title underwriters will allow a RON executed document. So Stewart Title was always a quick yes, Title Resource Guarantee, a quick yes, Old Republic with some limitations, and the limitation is just up to $1 million transaction that we're insuring. First National Title is now a yes, but the notary must be licensed in Arizona, Arizona RON notary, physically located in the state of Arizona. And First American Title is now a yes with that same criteria. So what that means is the way that Pioneer Title was able to do RON signings prior to the executive order that made the effective date for Arizona April 10th is that we were using states that already had the RON legislation passed. So we have a couple of Pioneer Title employees that had relocated to the state of Tennessee, and Tennessee was a state that already had this legislation in place. And so we immediately had those individuals get their notary and get their RON certification to their notary in the state of Tennessee, and then we could start using them to do signings, right? And so we just had to make sure at that point, because this list of title underwriters weren't quick yeses like they are today, it was still evolving. So we just had to look at the criteria. We had to look at each transaction on an individual basis and determine if using RON was an option. And we probably at that point, over let's say the past year, I've watched the use of our RON transactions grow from maybe 1 or 2 a month to 8 or 10 a month to now it's like 6 to 10 a day that we're able to sign a customer using this technology. So are the GSEs, those government-sponsored enterprises, accepting the e-closed loans? again, another $1 million question, right? So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have long accepted the electronic signatures on documents in the closing process. And they do believe that e-closings and e-mortgages are going to be part of our future. This isn't going to replace anything. It's just going to be another added value, but they're definitely on board with it. So now what I want to do is just kind of show you guys a demo of what a RON signing looks like. And I apologize, I'm kind of rushing through because I get really excited with all of the new changes. So I'll pause really quick before we start the demo, see if you have any questions. And then of course, we'll pause again and see if you have questions after the demo. So do we have any questions, Carrie?
Right now, we're good to go.
We're good. Anybody? Cherish raised her hand. Let's hear it, Cherish.
Hey, I just wanted to make sure that the participants on the call know that we are currently in the process of getting our Arizona notaries applied into the state level. So can you talk a little bit about that and how that's happening? I know in the Kingman office, I know we've got an active application, and Vicky's on here, so she'll correct me if I'm incorrect, going through the process right now.
Yes. It is a little bit further in the presentation, but we absolutely have Arizona RON certified notaries. We currently have 2. I think we have about 4 to 6 more that are in the middle of the process. So that's what makes it really exciting about the underwriters that now say we have to have an Arizona RON certified notary. Now we're able to do that. So it's really
There's a question about fees too. Is there a fee involved? And I know that's further down in your slides, but
it is.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is a fee involved. And I'll just say really quickly, it is typically less than a mobile notary charge. And then we'll talk about that a little bit, actually at the end of this page, after we watch the little demo. All right, so let me just get to our next screen. Quick second, guys. All right, Carrie, we can see the demo screen now?
Yep, we're good.
All right. So again, this is just going to run through, it's going to go through it fairly quickly because there is a little bit of information, but I'd like for you guys to see sort of what the customer, and this also shows a little bit the escrow officer, or not the escrow officer, the notary side, as well as the consumer side. And they do go through it rather quickly. So if you have questions, please ask, but this is one of the third-party vendors, Pavaso, that Pioneer Title is using with our RON certified notaries. We have a couple of them that we're using, but I like to show you this demo because it is one of the ones we're using.
Hello, and welcome to our demonstration. Today, we will show you how Pavaso's technology empowers lenders, title companies, and real estate attorneys to complete remote online
Diane, could you turn up the volume a little bit on it?
Notarization, or RON. With Pavaso's RON tool, the entire closing can be completed digitally and remotely. This option allows parties to attend the closing remotely, using two-way audio-video technology to electronically sign and notarize documents in states that have adopted specific RON legislation. One of the biggest benefits of the Pavaso platform is a title company or attorney firm's state-commissioned remote e-notaries can perform the remote online notarizations. Or you can use your current signing agency and join as an observer. Let's start with creation and configuration of the transaction. You will be invited to create an account under your company by email. You will use your login credentials to access all of your closing transactions in Pavaso. When logged in, you will see a dashboard and should select the Digital Close Enterprise web application. Next, you will enter your 6-digit PIN as a second layer of authentication to be able to see the order lobby, which displays all past, current, and upcoming closing transactions. As we go through this demonstration, we will continue to refer to the transaction as an order, since that is how it is referred to in the system. For a RON transaction, the remote closing and video e-notary checkbox needs to be selected to indicate that the closing for this order will be performed remotely. On this page, the closing documents provided by both lenders and title companies or attorney firms are brought together into a consolidated view, delivering
Diane, is there a way of turning up the volume?
The customer. There are two ways documents can easily be added to an order. Pavaso can either leverage existing integrations or establish new ones with the lender's doc prep provider, a title production system, or documents can be added by a simple upload. Let's open a document to see the signature, notary, and other tags that have been applied to it. To further streamline the process, the system is designed to automatically place the appropriate tags into each document, either through information passed via the integration or via saved tag templates customized for your company. However, if needed, you can always add or modify tags on each document. Once documents are ready for your customer to review, the lender or title user will select the Invite Borrowers to Pre-Closing button to invite them into the order. In this example, we are using only one buyer to keep it simple, but both buyers and sellers can be invited to an e-closing transaction. Your customer will receive an email invitation to create a Pavaso account so they can access their closing documents. They will use the link in the email to create a unique username and password. The customer will then select the Digital Close web application and create a 6-digit PIN for a second layer of security to access their order. When an order is accessed for the first time, the customer is presented with a Uniform Electronic Transaction Act or UETA disclosure. They will accept it and consent to the electronic delivery of documents and indicate their intention to sign electronically during the closing. You will receive a notification by email if the customer declines the UETA disclosure. However, the customer can still opt in to e-sign the closing documents at the settlement. With Pavaso, your customers can better prepare for their closing by having digital access to review their closing documents ahead of the closing. You also have the ability to offer a centralized educational library within the Pavaso platform. Materials can be provided to customers in different formats and be linked directly into corresponding documents, leading to a more educated and better informed customer. They can go over each document anywhere, on most internet-enabled devices, and customers can take as much time as they need. Once they reach the last page of a document, a button will instruct them to confirm the document. If all the information is correct, the customer will select the Confirm button to see the next document for review. At any point during the transaction, the customer has two secure options for communicating with their closing team. They can use the notification option to begin an online chat with a closing team member or send them a private message. When the customer finishes reviewing all documents, they select the Continue page, where they can select the Complete button and verify this action in the next pop-up. Once the customer completes this step, the platform notifies you that the customer has completed their pre-closing document review and the order is ready to remotely e-close on Pavaso. Pretty easy, right? Okay, we are now ready to move to the actual signing of the closing documents. Let's look at this from the remote e-notary's perspective first. The day of the closing, the state-certified remote e-notary that you have selected from your signing agency or the assigned title user of the order will log into their Pavaso account to initiate the RON closing. For this demonstration, the actions of the title user will be referred to as the actions of the remote e-notary. If the title user is not the remote e-notary for a transaction, they can still join as an observer. If needed, other members of the closing team, like the loan officer, can join as observers as well. Within the Digital Close Enterprise web application, the remote e-notary will select the remote online closing option and will select buyer remote or seller remote. At this point, the audio-visual recording of the transaction will begin. At the start of each closing, you must run a system test to ensure the camera, microphone, and speakers are working properly. The system test also validates they are using a compatible browser and they are directed to install the Pavaso Conference plugin. Now the remote e-notary can set up their digital signature and initials and wait for the customer to finish the system test and digital part of the identity verification process. Now let's look at this from the customer's view. They will also log into their Pavaso account, select the digital closing web application, enter their 6-digit PIN, and open their order. They perform a system test as well to ensure that their device is set up properly and meets the system requirements for the closing. They will use their 6-digit PIN to accept the UETA disclosure, which will verify the use of their electronic signatures for signing, and select the Enter Closing Session button. In accordance with regulations established by many states, they will be prompted to answer a series of knowledge-based questions to confirm their identity, which must be answered correctly to continue the closing. The customer has up to 2 attempts to answer them correctly. After the knowledge-based questions are answered accurately, they can set up their digital signature and initials. Everyone should now be logged into and able to communicate through the Pavaso platform. Before closing can begin, however, a second layer of customer identity proofing must be performed. A picture of the customer's photo ID must be captured and their identity validated. To do this, the customer selects the type of ID they want to use, driver's license, government-issued passport, or state ID, and selects the Validate by Smartphone button, where they will be prompted to enter their phone number. Once complete, the system will send a secure link to their smartphone that will prompt them to capture a photo of the front and back of their ID and submit it to Pavaso, similar to how a mobile check deposit is captured. The submitted photo ID is verified electronically through an accredited third-party system. The remote e-notary can also see the captured photo ID to verify the customer's identity via the camera. Now, let's see how e-signing and e-notarizing the closing documents remotely works. You can use a standard or touchscreen laptop or desktop computer with microphone and camera capabilities to participate in remote online e-closing. To sign the documents, when using a touchscreen laptop, a stylus or a fingertip can be used to draw a signature. When using a standard laptop or desktop, a mouse can be used. Pavaso offers two options for applying a customer signature to closing documents. It is up to you to review and determine what option may be best for you. The first option is Sign Once. When selected, this option can fast-track the e-closing. It autofills the customer's signature on all documents that were previously confirmed by the customer during the pre-closing document review process. As you can see in the first document, the signature and the date field linked to it have automatically populated. The remote e-notary can send a document to the customer for them to view it, allowing the customer to ask specific questions regarding the document or validate their signature. The remote e-notary selects Send Document to Remote Signer and then chooses the customer they want to send the document to in the next pop-up. The customer shares their screen, allowing the remote e-notary to watch their actions. After any questions have been answered and the signature is validated, the customer selects Done, and the document control returns to the remote e-notary. The second option is Sign Each. Regardless of which documents were confirmed during the pre-closing document review process, to sign, the customer will be required to click or tap each individual tag at the closing. This option can still accelerate the signing process, as the customer does not need to physically wet sign each document. Here you can see this document also requires e-notarization. The system will not allow you to notarize documents until the customer's signature has been applied. The remote e-notary will send the document to the customer. The customer will select the placeholder signature box, and their signature will be applied. Then, the customer will select Done, and the document control will be returned to the remote e-notary. Since we now have the customer's signature, the remote e-notary can select the placeholder e-notary signature tag, and the system will apply the notary signature, notary seal, and commission expiration date. The remote e-notary will then select Save to lock in the signatures, and the system will verify required fields on the document were completed before allowing you to move on to the next document. If needed, the remote e-notary can contact Pavaso support by phone and use the RON support button to invite them into the RON session for technical assistance. The Pavaso support member assisting can only see the remote e-notary screen and has no other capabilities. Once all digital actions have been performed, the Buyer Complete button will activate and the audio-visual recording of the transaction will end. The remote e-notary can proceed with finalizing the remote online e-closing and complete an electronic notary journal when required. If a notary journal is completed, the audio-visual recording of the transaction will end at this point. Within the post-closing screen, all permissible parties have access to the signed documents and a PDF audit log. Pavaso safeguards will not allow a transaction to close without capturing all required electronic signatures, reducing over or undersigning. Let's open the audit log to see all the data we tracked during an e-closing transaction. In this file, you can easily see the user that performed each action, a description of the action, which application the action was performed in, the user's IP address, and a timestamp of when the action took place. Remote online e-closing transactions also have a recording of the session available from the remote e-notary's viewpoint. Helpful tool. Additional documents can be added after the closing and made available to other parties as needed. This could include proof of funding or other post-closing documents relevant to the transaction. This concludes our demonstration, showing you just how easy it is to complete a remote online e-closing with Pavaso, and how you and your customers can benefit from a secure platform that allows everyone to communicate with all permissible parties in real time throughout the closing process. Selecting the right technology provider is critical when establishing your digital closing strategy. Pavaso's RON tool provides many benefits, such as give customers the ability to review closing documents and information ahead of the settlement, anytime, anywhere, from a secure platform. Provides a solution for individuals who are not able to attend in person. A title company or attorney firm's state commission remote e-notaries can perform remote online notarizations. Settlement agents maintain control of the transaction by conducting the signing, or, when they choose to use a signing agency, can join as an observer. Standardize your closing process, reduce errors and trailing documents, and make documents available faster for post-closing activities to begin. Gives all permissible parties in the transaction online access to a recording of the completed digital signing and notarizations.
All right. So there was the quick demo. Does anybody have questions?
I'm doing my best to keep everybody's audio silenced, but I'm kind of fighting it. So if everyone could make sure that your microphone is turned off, unless you want to raise your hand and ask Skyan a question, it would really probably help everybody else in listening. So it sounded a little bit like a lawnmower in the background.
Yeah, and you know what? They're doing.
I apologize for that.
That's my fault, because they are doing construction in the suite on the other side of my wall, and they're cutting concrete this morning.
All right. Well, you know, onward with more technical issues in our new world.
It's so fun.
Sorry.
Good time. Yeah, so I apologize. Can you guys hear me okay right now? Okay. Well, we'll just try to, you know, speak loudly. It was hard to get the video over the lawnmower, but the video demo that I just showed all of you is on the Pavaso website. So you can go to that website at any time and rewatch it, you know, if you're so inclined. I just like to show it so that you can get an idea of what that process looks like and feels like. And I feel like Pavaso made a really nice demo. So I had a different one that I was showing that was a little more casual and showed more what the consumer went through, but I feel like this one has a lot more detail. So
is there a way that you could email me the that video, and then I'll get it out to the reps that are on the call today? So if you know, we don't want to have you feel like you've missed something. So
of course,
yeah, I'm more than happy to get that video out today.
Okay. So the process is fairly easy. From an escrow officer perspective, it's kind of like a mail out, you know, so we just upload the documents to our favorite vendor's platform and let the fun begin. From our organization's perspective, we have a remote online notarization team. So at this point, not every notary with our company, because we are only an Arizona-based company, not every notary is going to get their RON certification, and mostly because we're trying to keep it centralized and keep the escrow officer focused on what they do best, right? Running their desk. And it's almost like they're outsourcing that signing, but they're outsourcing it to somebody within our organization. It's just our RON team. So
there's a quick question in here that is,
sure.
We haven't had this one before. So can documents that are done on RON first, then be recorded traditionally at the recorder's office, be printed and recorded traditionally at the recorder's office? And then we had one other, let me get it farther up. And I think you're going to go into it later, Skyan.
Okay.
But going through, because I know that we have at least one of our notaries on this call today. I think you're going to name the two third-party notaries that we're using too later on. If that's not, I believe you're doing that, right?
The vendors, yeah.
Okay.
Now I forgot the first question.
It was about recording it.
Oh, right.
They can print later.
That is a really great question. So the original RON executed and notarized document is only considered original when it is left in its digital format. So after the consumer signs it and the RON notary certifies it and it's emailed over to us, we have to keep it preserved in that digital format. So we have a paperless file, right? We use a paperless file system. We just upload it to that paperless file. When we're ready to record, we upload it to the digital recording platform. So the idea is once you print it, it's no longer an original. So really great question. You saw from the video that from the consumer's perspective, it's comfortable. I mean, they literally are just living their best life, doing whatever it is that they're doing. They could be on vacation, they could be in another country, another city, another state. And as long as they've got this audio-visual technology, they're a US citizen, they've got, you know, a photo government issued ID, a social security number. In most cases, they're going to be able to utilize this technology. I mean, as we know, if it's loan documents, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but pretty much anything else, we've been successful at getting the yes. So the customer gets an email, they log in and review the documents. If there's errors, they report them to their escrow officer, their real estate agent, whomever it is. They get corrected, they get the second email, everything's ready to go. They log in, docs look good, they request the notary. They do have to answer 5 of those knowledge-based authentication questions. And the video went through it pretty quickly, but it's 5 really detailed KBAs. And they are information that, you know, is pulled from their credit history, basically, you know, linking them to that social security number. And so if you don't have that history, that's why you can't use this program. We've even had
Skyan, I don't think I asked this before, but let's just say that they don't get the questions correctly. When can another link be sent out?
They get 2 shots. So 5 questions. They have to get 4 out of 5 right in 2 minutes or less. If they fail the first time, the program gives them a second opportunity. If they fail the second time, it boots them out and it says, sorry, you'll have to do it again later. It can be immediate. I mean, as soon as our Ron notary is notified that they didn't pass those KBAs, we can immediately send another link and give them 2 more shots. So there isn't like a waiting period.
And there's not like a max amount. I mean, I guess I'm kind of coming from the perspective of, you know, locks breaking or getting outside a contract at some point.
We haven't had that at all.
Okay.
Yeah. No experience with that happening at all. So, you know, the whole signing, like this morning's signing that the Ron notary sent back to our escrow officer, the escrow officer said, how did it go? And they were like, great, took less than 15 minutes. You know, they were ready to go. I was ready to go. It was a really smooth transaction, 15 minutes, right? And they're usually in the comfort of their own home, signing these documents, super easy. Nobody's coming in. They don't have to worry about a mobile notary, especially, you know, with the pandemic these days. We have seen our Ron requests for a Ron signing probably quadruple, maybe even more than that over the past, let's say, 6 weeks. So as I said, we've been doing this for about 1.5 years. It was just kind of a handful in a month. And now it's more than a handful each day that we're doing these transactions. So common questions, and someone did ask this earlier, what's the cost? And that seems to be another $1 million question. So all of the vendors' websites, and there's 3 different vendors that we have aligned ourselves with, and that is because...
Let me stop you for a quick second before you leave this topic, because there's a question about whether or not the questions change when the new links go out, and are there second chances if those questions do change.
Yep. You don't get the same questions again. Yes. So all of the vendors, the third-party vendors, have a menu on their website, and it says it's, you know, whatever it is, $50 for a deed, it's $100 for a loan package. You know, they have a menu. Here's our pricing menu. And it seems that none of them are invoicing based upon their menu, but the good news is they're typically invoicing less than more. And I think for them, it's just a learning process as well. And maybe their notaries aren't always familiar with what it is that they are having executed with the customer. And so they're maybe not sure how to bill for it. I mean, we've seen invoices come in for $0 and we've seen them come in for $150. But what I will say that we can say with a lot of confidence is that the invoices are less than what we would see with a mobile notary, as they should be. The mobile notary isn't taking time out of their day to drive to somebody, sit down and sign.
We have another question about cost, and that is, when we're doing fees, is that included in our bundle service charge?
It's not. No, we're still estimating for a mobile notary fee because we don't know what the fee is going to be. What I will tell you though, is that there are occasions that if it's our employee that can do the signing, there may or may not be a cost involved with that. So if there's a cost from the third-party vendor's platform, we would pass that on. If it's just the notary charging, they're an employee of the company, we're not going to charge.
Okay,
So
and Annie Allen down in Tucson, one of our escrow officers, has a question here. If you have a deed that was signed in person and accepted in acceptance, that was signed in RON, how does that get recorded? So it's somewhere when we're somewhere in person and some things were done with RON. How does that get done?
So you would have to scan in the wet signed portion and then use our digital platform, so our paperless platform, to merge the two documents into one. You can't print the RON executed document, so you've got to like merge them in our paperless program.
All right, we're good.
Okay. All right. Any more questions on cost?
Because it can be all over the place depending upon how many documents are going to be signed. It can be, I mean, you said 0, but I think when we talked before, you know, having one document signed, it might be $50. And then you kind of estimate it up to, I think it was $195 or something like that. So it falls in the general area.
Mm-hmm. Yep. More often than not, though, it's on the low end. Yeah. So the 195 was, I think, a loan package that we actually had authorization from the lender, and they had that e-note vault to store their note, that they sent the note separately than the rest of the documents. And that particular signing was 195. And that consumer, that buyer, was in another country, US citizens, but they were just traveling. They were in another country. Believe it or not, he was in a band and he was going to be out of country for a month. And this was the only way to get it done. And they got it done. And this was before the pandemic. So we actually closed that transaction about 4 months ago. Will the notary explain the documents to the customer? And this is a really good question. And this is important for everybody to understand. The customer has an opportunity to log into this platform and review the documents ahead of asking to meet with the notary. And the reason for that is that the whole remote online notarization event is recorded. And there are very specific guidelines under which the notary is able to answer questions. They are acting in a capacity of a notary. They are not an escrow officer. And so we've all been a little bit spoiled with our mobile notaries. They've become kind of an extension of our company, and they understand the documents. They can, you know, answer general questions about a settlement statement or a deed or something of that nature. And these notaries on these recorded events are simply verifying identification. The person is the person that they're meeting with using this audiovisual technology, and they're executing the document, and the notary is notarizing their signature. So,
you know, Diane, if something, what happens, I have a question here from the chat.
yeah.
If there's a document that has an error on it, what happens then inside of that situation?
So typically you're logging in and you're reviewing those documents and reporting errors before you ever meet with the notary, right? If by some chance you don't see the error and you get to the space where you're already with the notary and there is a correction that needs to be made, you'll have to do the event over again. So they'll have to end the event. They'll have to request the revised documents from the escrow officer, get them uploaded into the platform, and send a new link for signing to the consumer. So it's important that they are gone over, you know, and it's a conversation that the escrow officer is having with their customer, right? We're going to use this great technology. You're going to have an opportunity to review the documents in advance. Please do that. Please review them. Call me. We can go over them on the phone if you have questions. You know, whatever it is, let's make sure that by the time you meet with that mobile notary, you're ready to go. So the upside right now is that the documents that are being uploaded to the RON platform are only the documents that require notarization. So right now we're pulling out any other documents, a settlement statement, a closing disclosure, anything that doesn't need notarization, we're having the escrow officer send to the consumer via DocuSign. and only documents that need a notary are being uploaded to this third-party platform. So it reduces the risk of having an error when there's only a few documents in that third-party vendor's RON platform. And the reason that we're doing that is volume. So these third-party platforms are just inundated, so it's not just the state of Arizona, right? It's a lot of states that are using these platforms. And so they're very busy. And so we figured from our perspective, we made the choice to only place documents in there that need a notary so that we can keep things moving along. We can get as many done as possible throughout the day.
Is the customer signing a disclosure, or some sort of disclosure saying that they have reviewed the documents? It's a question from our group here.
No, but when you're in the third-party vendor's platform, I don't think that it's a signature that's required, but as you go through the documents, you have to view them and you have to click like next or okay. So you have to see them before you can request the notary. I just don't know if a signature is required. A signature is required to say that you're acknowledging that you're signing these documents using an electronic signature and that we can accept that as a wet signature. That's the only type of acknowledgement, I believe, that's being executed. So you've been out-of-state seller or homebound seller, don't panic, right? So if the seller has a laptop, a tablet, an iPad, if they've got that video, microphone, and good internet access, they've got a social security number, they have a valid photo ID, so a state-issued driver's license, ID card, passport, military ID. And then, is the property located in a county that will record RON documents? This is the other exciting change that I get to share with you guys. So just last week, Pima County, there were about 47 hurdles that we had to jump through before they would accept a RON executed document for notarization. It almost made it impossible. They were the last county to come on board with it. And when they did, they said, yes, but check off all of these things before we'll accept it. So now we've got it narrowed down to sort of the same type of requirements that a few of our underwriters have. And that is the notary must be a licensed Arizona notary physically located in the state of Arizona. And so excitingly enough, we have at least 2 of those right now with Pioneer Title. So we've got 2 Arizona RON certified notaries on staff performing these signings. So we now are a yes for Pima County.
What if they end up having to do the session again? So there was something, I don't know how it could be missed in this type of situation, but is there an additional charge if a notary session needs to take place due to an error found during the signing? Is there another charge?
No, the charge is for the actual notarization. So if they can't notarize, then there isn't a charge until they do.
Okay.
And so one of the other steps that we have to take to use RON is that all of the parties in the transaction have to consent to the use of RON on whatever document it's being used for. So our company created a very simple consent form. The buyer and the seller have to execute it. If there is a lender involved, if the buyer's getting new financing, then that lender has to approve whatever documents we're asking to be executed with RON also. They don't have to sign our consent form. We can take a written acknowledgement via email with their approval. We just have to know that it's from a decision maker at the lender's office. And then who is the title underwriter? And so that was the other exciting thing is that, last week we still had a couple title underwriters that were, pretty much a no. And now today, as long as it's an Arizona RON notary, we've got the yeses. Now I say that for our 5 title underwriters. So I can't speak to any of the title underwriters that I didn't talk about at the beginning of this presentation, right? There's a lot of other title underwriters out there. So just some things to remember, right? This new technology doesn't need to solve everything, but it is a great option for us to add to our repertoire. This is a process that we have been watching for more than a decade, and we've just been waiting for it to show up in some way, shape, or form. And like I said, we've been using it when it fit for the past year and a half, and now we were ready for it, and we've been using it regularly every single day. So Ron is another tool that we have available to be used if and when all parties to the transaction that think it's appropriate. It's not meant to replace anything. It's just another option. There's still going to be mail outs, email, fax, phone calls, text messages, smoke signals, whatever form of communication you've used in the past, you'll keep using it. This is just an add-on.
Let's just say somebody knows kind of from the very beginning of the transaction when they're opening escrow that this is a possibility to a likely option that they're going to want. It's probably best. I mean, talk to everybody about, you know, if you know that this is probably something that's going to need to be used, the sooner you let the escrow officer know, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's a cash transaction, it's pretty easy because all you've got is the buyer and the seller that you've got to worry about. Really, we can overcome anything else, right? If there is a lender involved, then it does add that extra level that we just need to get approval on. If it's the seller side, it's probably going to be okay. Buyer side, probably not. You know, probably not. But it's not a hard no. It's just a probably not. It's evolving still.
So there's someone else sent me a private message here. Is it worth mentioning that a Facebook or Skype signing with a notary is not acceptable?
Well, I think that's always worth mentioning. When to do a remote online notarization signing, you have to do it through a third-party vendor platform, and you have to have a RON certified notary. So it's not enough to just be a state notary. You have to apply for and obtain an additional certification to your state notary. And in order to do that, part of that application process is telling the Arizona Secretary of State on that application what third-party platforms you're aligning yourself with. And so when our notaries that work for Pioneer Title filled out their application, as I had mentioned, there were 3 different third-party platforms that we've already vetted. We've already done the background. We're already comfortable with their security and with their platform. And so we use the one I just demoed, which is Pavaso. And the reason that we've aligned, one of the big reasons we've aligned with Pavaso is because there are a couple of lenders that are aligning with Pavaso for a remote signing experience. And so we wanted to make sure that we vetted them and we were on board with them. And then the other one is NotaryCam. And so you have to put 2 on your application when you fill it out for your RON certification with the Arizona Secretary of State. So those are the 2 that our employees used. There is another third-party vendor that we've aligned ourselves with called Notarize, but we don't have any of our employees with Notarize. If our employees aren't able to take the signing, let's say it's overseas and they've got to sign in the middle of the night or something of that nature, we're going to farm that out to Notarize, to one of their notaries. It's almost a 24/7, not quite, they've got really weird hours, but it's almost a 24/7 that you could do a notary event on that Notarized platform. So we didn't put those on our applications because in order to be a notary for Notarize, you have to give them your hours of availability. So you're almost like an employee for them. And that's not what we wanted for our actual notaries that work for Pioneer Title. So the ones that we've got our notaries aligned with are NotaryCam and Pavaso. So Ron, in Arizona, we know that Senate Bill 1030 was signed into law, and we know that the effective date was supposed to be July 1st, 2020. But we also know that with the executive order, that date was moved up. So how is Pioneer Title preparing? We want to be ready to service our customers' needs with whatever method they may choose. So we started with out-of-state notaries on transactions where there appeared to be a need. We now have 2 Arizona RON notaries on staff, and more are coming online over the next few days. We also have 2 out-of-state RON notaries on staff, and those 2 individuals are in Tennessee.
Diane, are you seeing that these notaries are going to need additional bonding and insurance required for this type of transaction?
You know, I don't know that question. I would think that the application would say whether or not that was the case. I just don't know it. Yeah. So we vetted vendors and we came up with a plan to become live July 2020 with the in-house, in-state.
We have one of our notaries on here that is, she's messaging me right now that they don't. She's going through the process right now with the state.
Good, perfect. So we have in-house, in-state, remote online notaries, and we were ready to go. So when the EO was, executive order was issued, moving up the effective date, April 10th, we were ready to roll. We had already been doing it. And we are also exploring e-notes for private loans and carrybacks. So from a institutional lender perspective, they have to do their own homework and find like an e-vault, I think is what they call it, to house those electronically signed notes. And so it's typically a different program than where the RON documents are executed. And they've got to do their own homework. They've got to feel comfortable with the security piece of it, because whoever holds that original note holds the money. You know, it's the most important piece in that loan package. And so one of the other things to sort of keep in mind is that, you know, I've told you that we've vetted these 3 different RON platforms, but it's when the lenders start getting more and more prepared to have loan documents executed, if they choose a different platform to use than these ones that we've vetted, they're kind of going to be leading the charge, and we're going to have to then vet those platforms ourselves if we want to be able to perform these e-signings for the lenders. So there's going to be, I'm told that there's 30 plus RON platforms out there. So that's a lot of vendors. That's a lot of people out there. And these lenders are all going to be choosing the one that fits best for them. And so we're going to just be following and doing our homework so that we can make sure that we can provide the service if it's requested on the platform that the lender is using. And then this was just the executive order. On April 8th is when they announced that effective April 10th, they would allow Arizona notaries to start filling out applications. And it took about 2 weeks for our first couple of notaries to get through the entire process. So at 8 a.m. on April 10th, you could log on to the Arizona Secretary of State and start filling out this RON certification to your notary. And we had a couple of people that were like 8 a.m. They were on it, they submitted it. So they had to be in the first, you know, let's say 50 Arizona notaries that did it. And it took 2 weeks for our first notary to get his certification and be ready to be live. And when you fill out the application, the Secretary of State was saying it'll take 7 to 14 days, but it could take up to 45 days. So it was just kind of a, you know, we're all just looking in our crystal ball, trying to figure out exactly how long it's going to take. So we were excited to see that it really was just the 14 days and people started coming online. So that's it. It's RON. It's kind of a big deal. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions, anybody? Because we did do this morning on Facebook Live, I see that Vicki has a question here in a second, but if you would like to go back and re-watch any part of this, it'll be sitting on a couple different sites. My Facebook page has it. I know that the Kingman site has it. And so it will be accessible. This was not recorded, but you can go back to some of those Facebook sites, and I'll of course tag as many of the reps in that that video as possible, so you can go back to the rep that invited you today. And then here we have Vicki had a question. Vicki, do you want to unmute yourself?
No question. Just
okay.
Diane, good job.
Thank you.
I have a question, Carrie.
Kim, do you want to ask? Just go ahead and ask Skyanne.
Yeah, Skyanne, so once the customer indicates that they want a RON notary, how long of a wait time is it? Are we seeing that some of the RON notaries are more booked than others and aren't quite as available?
So we have a shared calendar for our in-house RON notaries, which is great. and we have a shared email. And so internally, our escrow officer would email that Ron email. And, you know, there's a checklist of things to include. And then someone grabs it pretty quickly and says, okay, got it. I would say that, you know, you want to allow at least 48 hours, but we've done it same day. I mean, we've done it in a few hours. It's just that what if, right? What if the consumer's technology doesn't work? What if there is an error and it needs to be corrected? So it's like anything else. You want to allow for time for errors just in case, but it can be done very quickly. I mean, I think that you're going to see their schedule start to book up, but we are getting more and more notaries coming online also. So that's good.
Right. Okay. And the ones we've had have been great, and the customers love them. And yeah, it's been a great positive experience.
Yeah, we've got a really good team doing those signings.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else like to unmute and ask a question of Skyanne?
Question, Skyanne.
Yes.
So if we have a local notary that we've been using their services to do our signings since the COVID-19, they've been approved and they're doing some of our loan package signings, and they want to become a Ron notary, how do they go about doing that to be a Ron, also be a Ron notary for us or contracted?
You know, we haven't explored to any great length yet what that's going to look like or feel like for our already approved mobile notaries. You know, we've got an extensive list of mobile notaries that we have vetted, but we haven't gone down that road yet because we've got people internally that are able to do the signings. And so right now we're trying to manage it with our internal notaries. And then if we can't, we are farming it out to that notarize.com website. Now I will say, and I'm just, I'm not 100% certain on what I'm saying, but I do think that we can request a specific notary through that notarize.com website. So I think we have the ability somehow to make a request for a specific notary. I just haven't done it myself, and so I don't know exactly what that looks like or feels like.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then it's 11 o'clock. We don't want to take up any more of anyone else's time, but on behalf of all the sales reps and all the rest of the Pioneer family that are on here or invited you, thank you so much for spending the last hour. Oh, I do see one hand went up. We appreciate you, and we know you have a choice, and so every time you choose Pioneer, it's greatly appreciated. I think it was Laura Frazier. If you want to unmute yourself and ask Skyanne a question.
I was clapping for you. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, all right. Thank you.
I thought I was clapping.
I think that clapping, Andrew is clapping. So, hey, you know, thank you. Skyanne, well, you're awesome. I've known you for years and you've always done a great job. You got one of the top escrow minds in the state of Arizona that just did this presentation. So she's a true pro. I love working with Skyanne. And so our entire team just appreciates the opportunity to work with you on all the transactions. And please, if you would like to get involved in kind of a bounce back business plan, please contact the sales rep who invited you today. We're all ready and waiting to help you as we, I don't like reopen Arizona, but as I think we're gonna spring back. I truly believe that. So getting ready for as this market changes back to, I think probably going to be as hot as the summer is already. And but thank you for coming. We are going to continue. Skyanne and I were talking before everybody got on about continuing to do these classes. I guess it's important because it's evolving. So even though you took this class today, it's entirely possible that there'll be changes in the very near future. So I think every couple weeks we'll be doing something that's like this, where it's a statewide collection of everybody. And please, like I said, reach out to your sales rep if you need a copy of the PowerPoint or to get a hold of that video. I know that somebody did put it in the chat box, but we're more than happy to help you. So put all of us to work for you. Skyen, any closing remarks?
I was trying to turn off the lawnmower. I muted myself for a second.
There's always something when it comes to technical difficulties. Today it was a lawnmower. So
Yeah, right.
You guys, thank you, Skyen. You're
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you, Sky.
right.
Appreciate it, guys.
Everyone
you.
have a beautiful day.
You too.
Thank you.